Are we really supposed to believe that after disabling all the privacy settings within Windows that it actually stops Microsoft from tracking and spying on our Windows computer? Yeah, no. So I'm going to show you two methods that you should use that will stop your computer from leaking data. Method number one has been around forever and it's an absolute favorite tool that many of us use, and it's free. And of course I'm talking about the famous O&OShutup10++. And yes, it does work on Windows 10 and Windows 11. The nice thing is that this tool requires no actual installation. You just download it and run it as a utility. Now, whenever we download anything from the internet, we want to make sure it's the official website. I will have a link to that below. I also like to run it through something called VirusTotal to make sure it's a legitimate version with no issue and nothing funny hiding inside. Now that I know it's clean, let's go through it. And this is what it looks like. The interface is pretty straightforward. Top side, you're going to see something called current user, which is the user that's logged in, or local machine, which is basically the settings for this entire computer. So let's go to the current user, and I get a whole bunch of options. And then if you don't know what anything is, simply click on it, and a little pop-up window opens and explains what that option is. And the best thing is that you can make it based on your own personal preference. What I would like disabled, you may want to have enabled. So it's really down to you. Now, on the right-hand side, it's got a little recommended where they suggest whether you should enable or disable it. And if you're going to make any changes, the first time you do this, it's going to say, look, let's make a restore point just in case something goes horribly wrong. Now, there's a lot of stuff here, and the more you go down this, you'll see just how much this tool actually exposes and just how much more control you actually have on the stuff that's running on your computer. All right, let's go actually make a change just so I can show you what that looks like. So under the taskbar, let's just say I want to disable the search box in my taskbar. So I'm going to switch that on. Oh, it's also worth mentioning you can go into File, you can export the settings, and you can go to the actions and you can say automatically apply only the recommended, or you can say recommended and somewhat recommended settings, or apply all settings. And you have the option to undo everything you've just done. So this is nice and safe. All right, so now we close down this little utility and it says, look, heads up, that may be an Windows update that invalidates everything that you've just done. So just a heads up, you may need to run this again and again after every update. And some of the settings that we've chose to do will actually require a restart of Windows. So let's go ahead and do that quickly, just so we can see what that looks like. And now logging back into the machine, and you can see my search is actually gone in my taskbar, completely disappeared. Now, let's see, we want to bring it all back. So let's go back into our little utility. All we have to do is double click on it and it will simply pop that utility open. Now under actions, I simply go to the option that says undo all changes. And it says, yep, it's going to undo them. Do you want to make another restore point? I'm not going to do that at this stage. And now all settings have been reset. So a quick reboot later. Let's log in. Remember, we got rid of the search in the taskbar and voila, it is now back. Okay, so now that we spent some time going through the various settings and enabling and disabling what is good for you, let me show you another method to make sure that no data is leaking from your computer. And the best way to do that is to stop the DNS to Microsoft. What does that mean? Well, we know whenever we go to any website like Google.com, the computer has no idea where that is. So it needs to look up the IP address of Google.com. And it does this by using a system called DNS. DNS is like the phone book of the internet. You looks up Google.com, it comes back and says, here's the IP address, and then off your browser goes to Google.com. So why is this even remotely interesting, and what has that got to do with Microsoft and our data? Well, what happens if we can control the IP address? In other words, what happens if we tell our computer, look, computer, whenever you're trying to send something to Microsoft systems, don't bother looking it up in the DNS. You're going to use the IP address that I give you. And we're certainly not going to give the right IP address, which means that our computer cannot reach Microsoft systems. And if it cannot reach their systems, it cannot send them our data. And this is super exciting because we get control. And it sounds complicated, but it really isn't. Let me show you how to do this. Okay, let's fire up your File Explorer, click on your local C. You'll see Windows folder. We want to double click on that. Then we want to scroll down until we see System32. Double click on that. And we're going to scroll down and we're going to see something called drivers. We want to double click on that. And then at the top, you're going to have etc. etc. We want to double click on that. And this is where we're going to be playing. So we were interested in the file called hosts. Well, before we do anything, I want to right click on hosts. I'm going to go down to copy. I'm then going to right click anywhere and press on paste, because we want to make sure that we have a backup. Before we do anything, backups are important. Now, I like to right click on the file. I like to rename it. So I have host-backup. So now I know exactly what that is. Okay, now that we've got that out the way, let's see what it actually looks like. So we're going to right click on the host file. We're going to click on open with, and we're going to choose Notepad and click OK. And this is the text file that you'll see. This is how this file works. So we have a website, and the website is that domain. And now we're saying, don't look it up on the internet. Here is the IP address I want to go to whenever we look up that website. Here is a different website. Don't look it up either on the internet. Rather use this IP address that I have. Don't bother with the DNS. Use what I am telling you. Okay,